The morning sun filters through the thin curtains of Eddie's small bedroom, illuminating the familiar shadows of his childhood. He sits on the edge of his bed, trembling fingers cradling his call-up papers like a fragile lifeline. The words blur as excitement and fear collide within him, a tempest of emotions swirling in his chest. Eddie gazes out the window at the quiet street, where laughter of children echoes in stark contrast to the uncertainty ahead. He recalls his mother's warm embrace and the comforting smells of home-cooked meals, now overshadowed by the call of duty pulling him into the unknown. As the distant sound of marching boots reaches his ears, he understands that ordinary life is slipping away, replaced by an unwelcome reality. With a deep breath, he steels himself for the journey ahead, aware that the boy who dreams of adventure is stepping into a world fraught with turmoil and sacrifice. Eddie awoke to the harsh clatter of boots against the cold, damp ground, his muscles aching from the relentless training at boot camp. The days blurred together in a haze of discipline and exhaustion, each sunrise heralding another grueling regimen. As he stood in formation with his fellow recruits, he felt the weight of their shared anxiety and resolve. In the barracks, laughter mingled with shouts, forging bonds that would be tested in the crucible of war. During rare moments of downtime, Eddie found solace in the camaraderie, exchanging stories of home and dreams that felt distant. Each grueling obstacle course and drill chipped away at the boy he had been, shaping him into a soldier. Yet, in the quiet moments, a flicker of homesickness ignited, a reminder of the ordinary life he had traded for this new and brutal existence. As night fell, the camaraderie turned contemplative, echoes of shared hopes weaving them closer as they faced the unknown. The flickering flames cast shadows as the recruits gathered around the campfire, sharing stories in the crisp night air. Laughter mingled with the crackling wood, but beneath the joviality, an undercurrent of unease simmered. Eddie listened intently as a fellow soldier recounted tales of his family back home, his mother's laughter, his younger sister's mischievous antics. Each word tugged at Eddie's heart, igniting a cascade of memories from his own childhood. The familiar scent of his mother's baking, the comforting warmth of his father's embrace. He could almost see their faces in his mind, etched with love and worry. As the night deepened, Eddie grappled with the bittersweet reality of his life becoming a relic of the past. The promise of adventure and honor seemed dimmer in contrast to the aching longing for home. In this moment of camaraderie, he was reminded that amidst the horrors of war, the threads of family would always bind him to his roots. The air was thick with tension as the dawn rose over the battlefield, casting eerie shadows on the charred earth. Eddie clutched his rifle, heart pounding in rhythm with the distant thud of artillery. Today, he would face his first combat. Memories of training fell away, replaced by a primal instinct to survive. As they surged forward, chaos erupted. The screams of men and the pealing of gunfire created a cacophony that overwhelmed his senses. Time seemed to stretch and contract. Moments became eternal, filled with the realization of his own vulnerability. He witnessed friends stumble, some falling to the ground, and in that instant, an icy grip of fear seized him. Adrenaline surged, blurring the edges of reason, yet amidst the terror, he found a fierce resolve. His mind raced, every thought screaming to survive, to make it through this hellish trial, and to return to the light of his sister's letters and familiar laughter. Eddie settled into his cot that evening, the weight of the day's training easing off his shoulders, if only momentarily. He unfolded the carefully folded letter from his sister, the familiar handwriting grounding him. As he read her words, her warmth seeped through the ink, painting vivid pictures of home, echoes of laughter, the smell of their mother's baking, and the cozy corners of their small flat. Each line resonated with a longing that sliced through the dense fog of war surrounding him. She spoke of the mundane, yet in his eyes, these mundane details glowed like treasures. Tears prickled at the edges of his vision, a mix of pride and sorrow swelling within him. The laughter of his comrades faded into the background as he battled the urge to cry. Emotions, so rich and so unbearably heavy, reminded him of the fragile ties that bound him to life beyond the chaos of the trenches. Loss lingers like a shadow, intertwining itself with the cadence of gunfire in the air. Today the battlefield claimed friends I never thought I would lose, and their absence has carved a hollow space within me. I watched as the light faded from their eyes, feeling a crushing weight settle on my chest. The laughter and shared dreams we once exchanged are now echoes of a life I can barely remember. Guilt floods my thoughts. If I had only acted faster, made different choices, could I have saved them? The futility of it all gnaws at my soul, dragging me deeper into despair. Each loss feels like a betrayal to their memory, a haunting reminder of the fragility of existence. As I write, I realize that I must bear their stories forward, for they deserve more than just a fleeting remembrance on a battlefield stained with grief. The stench of death hung heavily in the air, a suffocating miasma that curled around Eddie like a cloak. He crouched in the damp trench, eyes fixed on the battlefield's grim aftermath, where the bright colors of life had been replaced by the muted hues of despair. Bodies lay strewn amidst the rubble, each one a lost story, a dream extinguished before its time. The cacophony of battle had faded, leaving only the haunting silence that followed, an echo of resolve shattered. With each labored breath, Eddie felt the weight of mortality press down on him, the visceral fear wrapping tighter around his heart. He closed his eyes, attempting to block out the sights, but the images flooded back, his friends, their laughter, and dreams now silenced. In the midst of horror, he pondered the meaning of it all. The fleeting nature of life gnawed at his soul, forcing him to confront the cruel reality of war. Eddie lay in the trenches, the distant echoes of battle muted by the heavy silence enveloping them. The respite felt surreal, as if the world outside was holding its breath. He turned to his fellow soldiers, finding comfort in the soft glow of their shared camaraderie. Amid the mud and decay, they spoke openly, voices hushed yet filled with unspoken fears and hopes. "Do you ever wonder if it will end?" one soldier asked, his eyes searching for reassurance. Eddie nodded, the weight of uncertainty pressing on his chest. As they shared laughter over mundane stories and dreams of returning home, a moment of warmth enveloped the group, defying the darkness surrounding them. In these fleeting conversations, Eddie grasped the power of connection, realizing that while they had lost so much, the bonds formed here could not be broken. Each shared story became a thread, weaving their fates together in this harsh tapestry of war. The tension in the air was palpable as I took my place on lookout duty, the deep silence enveloping the trenches like a heavy shroud. The stillness was unnerving, broken only by the distant muffled thud of artillery, a haunting reminder of the chaos outside our fragile refuge. Time stretched endlessly, and each minute felt like an hour, as I scanned the horizon for signs of movement. Shadows danced under the pale moonlight, playing tricks on my mind and amplifying the weight of longing and dread. A chill crept down my spine when a sudden rustle caught my attention, my heart racing like a wild stallion. I gripped my rifle tighter, breath held, as the silence deepened around me, a stark contrast to the cacophony I fought in daily. In those moments, as solitude enveloped me, I confronted my fears, grappling with the uncertainty that bound us all in this relentless nightmare. Eddie sat on the edge of his cot, the dim light of the oil lamp casting flickering shadows against the walls of the casualty ward. The air was thick with antiseptic and unspoken fears. Today, he met Andrew, a soldier whose haunted eyes bore the weight of unspeakable suffering. Once a proud, courageous comrade, Andrew's spirit had been shattered by the torment of his time as a prisoner of war. As they spoke, Eddie felt an unsettling connection. Andrew's stories of starvation, beatings, and despair mirrored the suppressed memories he had buried deep within himself. Each word seemed to unearth a part of Eddie he'd tried to forget, the worries of his childhood, the images of his father's silent despair, the haunting question of survival. As Andrew's tale unfurled, Eddie realized that the battle was not just against the enemy outside, but also against the demons within, waiting to be acknowledged. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the makeshift camp, laughter resonated through the air, momentarily drowning out the echoes of war. Eddie sat among his comrades, their faces illuminated by the flickering firelight. They shared stories, trading jokes and teasing one another, a fleeting glimpse of normalcy in the midst of chaos. In that rare moment, the heaviness of their reality lifted, replacing the weight of loss and despair with warmth and camaraderie. Eddie's heart swelled as he watched them laugh, recognizing the importance of these moments of joy amidst the turmoil. For a brief time, they were not soldiers bound by duty, but friends united by shared experiences. As the laughter faded and silence settled in, the shadows seemed less daunting. With a bittersweet smile, Eddie realized that even in this dark world, fragments of light persisted, reminding them all of who they were beyond the trenches. Hope flickered like embers, hinting at the possibility of life beyond the war. Eddie found himself drawn to a solitary weeping willow, its long, graceful branches swaying gently in the breeze amidst the desolation of the war-torn landscape. As he approached, the contrast struck him, a symbol of survival, nestled in a world riddled with chaos. He sat beneath its sheltering limbs, its leaves whispering secrets of resilience. Memories of childhood flooded back, afternoons spent climbing trees, dreaming of adventures that now felt like distant echoes. The tree stood defiantly against the surrounding devastation, reminding him that life persisted even in the harshest conditions. In that moment, as he traced a finger along the rough bark, Eddie felt a flicker of hope igniting within him. Perhaps, like the willow, he too could endure and grow. With each passing day, he held on to the belief that beauty could emerge from despair, a mantra to carry him through the darkness that loomed ever closer. Eddie sat quietly in the soldiers' gathering area, the weight of the day pressing heavily on his shoulders. The laughter and banter around him faded into a dull murmur as he absorbed the news of a fellow soldier's family tragedy. The soldier, with hollow eyes that spoke of untold sorrow, shared how an air raid had claimed his home, leaving his loved ones trapped beneath the ruins. Eddie felt a profound ache within, recognizing that the war extended its reach far beyond the battlefield. It cast shadows into homes, tearing apart the very fabric of families. As he listened to the soldier recount memories of better times, thoughts of his own family surged uninvited, igniting a fear he couldn't shake. This shared sorrow reminded him that every life disrupted was a reminder of the humanity that war sought to unravel, strengthening the bond between men united by loss and the longing for home. The tension in the air was palpable as Eddie and his fellow soldiers awaited their orders. Days of anticipation culminated in this moment, a mission that could shift the tide in their favor. As they moved into position, the adrenaline surged through Eddie's veins, momentarily drowning out the fear that had become a constant companion. Together, they pushed forward, the sound of gunfire sharpening their focus. In the heat of battle, Eddie felt an overwhelming sense of unity. The men fought not just for their country, but for each other. The successful raid ignited a spark of hope amidst the chaos. At that moment, victory tasted sweet, if only fleetingly. It was a reminder that they could still triumph even in the darkest of days. As they regrouped, laughter broke through the tension, a balm for their war-weary souls. Bonded by shared struggle, they found strength in one another, a precious ember of hope in an uncertain world. The cold, damp air clung to Eddie's skin as he lay curled in his makeshift sleeping bag, the fever burning through him like a firestorm. Shadows danced on the walls of the cramped quarters, flickering with a life of their own, mocking the very essence of his existence. He could hear the distant sounds of gunfire and the anguished cries of his comrades, but they felt like echoes from another world, a reality slipping further from his grasp. Days blurred together in a haze of sweat and delirium, memories faltering as the grip of illness tightened around him. In fleeting moments of lucidity, he thought of home, his mother's laughter, the warmth of the sun on the fields behind their house. It was a fragile hope, yet it tethered him to life, urging him to fight through the darkness. As he lay there, Eddie grasped the lessons of survival. Even in sickness, the warrior spirit burned fiercely within him. As the night deepens, a familiar ache pulls at Eddie's chest, drawing him into a world where the boundaries between dreams and memories blur. In the silence of his bunk, he finds himself slipping away from the chaos of the trenches, and suddenly, he's back in his family's garden, a warm sun on his face, laughter echoing around him. He can hear his sister's voice, sweet and lilting, calling him to join her by the old oak tree. But just as he reaches for her, the sounds of shelling erupt in the distance, yanking him back to the present. Alone in the dark, he feels isolation wash over him like cold water. The nostalgia is bittersweet, mingled with a fierce longing for the simplicity of home. As he stares at the wooden beams of the shelter, he realizes that this dream, both a comfort and a torment, is a lifeline in a world torn apart by war. Eddie stood on the outskirts of the civilian area, his heart heavy as he observed the remnants of what was once a vibrant community. The dull echoes of gunfire served as a grim backdrop to the silence that enveloped the weary faces of the locals. Children, once filled with laughter, now played in the dirt, their innocent eyes hollowed by the shadows of war. A mother hurried past him, clutching her child tightly, while others scavenged for food amidst the rubble. As he walked among them, Eddie felt a lump in his throat, the weight of their suffering crashing over him like waves. Each face told a story of loss and endurance. For the first time, he realized that war's impact transcended the battlefield, carving invisible scars into the hearts of those untouched by combat. In their struggle, he found a mirror reflecting his own fears, deepening his understanding of the shared humanity that war sought to obliterate. The night settled heavily over the barracks, an uneasy calm blanketing the soldiers as they tried to catch their breath amid the chaos that had just unfolded. The sharp blasts of the air raid siren sliced through the stillness, pulling Eddie from the fragile veil of sleep. Chaos erupted as men stumbled from their bunks, a mad scramble of limbs tangled in the darkness. Instinctively, he joined the rush towards the safety of the dugouts, heart pounding in a wild rhythm that drowned out the world around him. The cacophony of explosions rattled the ground, each blast a reminder of their vulnerability. In the cacophony, Eddie clutched the cold metal of his rifle and felt the weight of fear wash over him. Survival had become an instinct stronger than the bonds of brotherhood forged in quieter moments. The fragility of life was laid bare, revealing how quickly everything could change, leaving only echoes of their existence hanging in the heavy air. In the suffocating silence that envelops the trenches after the clamor of battle, I find myself adrift in a sea of thoughts. The echoes of gunfire dissolve into an uncomfortable stillness, leaving only the distant cries of the fallen, haunting me like specters. Alone in my thoughts, I grapple with the weight of morality. What does it mean to be courageous when duty demands unspeakable horrors? I picture the faces of those we've lost, each representing a choice made under duress. Am I noble for serving, or a coward for surviving? The line blurs between right and wrong, heroism and horror. I question my role in this relentless conflict, haunted by the knowledge that every decision has lingering consequences. As the moonlight casts shadows over the trenches, I feel an overwhelming urge to make sense of it all, to find meaning amidst the chaos, even as it eludes my grasp. As the days wore on in the trenches, the weight of despair thickened the air. A once jovial comrade, Tommy, began to unravel before our eyes. The laughter we shared transformed into haunted glances as he withdrew further into himself. Eddie watched helplessly as Tommy's spirit fractured under the relentless pressure of war. The sound of distant artillery once brought unity, but now echoed with the promise of madness. Late one night, as shadows danced around their flickering candlelight, Eddie felt the chill of dread radiate from Tommy. Words escaped him, replaced by frantic gestures and vacant stares. The horror of their situation loomed, shattering the bonds forged in combat. Eddie grappled with an overwhelming sense of helplessness, recognizing that madness was a lurking predator in the trenches. In witnessing his friend's descent, he realized that the psychological toll of war echoed louder than the blasts around them, deepening his own fears of losing sanity amidst the chaos. Eddie knelt in the mud, the weight of grief pressing down on him like the rain that softly fell from the gray sky. Just hours ago, he had been laughing with Tom, exchanging the usual banter that made the horrors of war bearable. Now Tom lay motionless, a stark reminder of the fragility of life in these trenches. It was unreal, the way everything could shift in an instant. With trembling hands, Eddie pulled out a scrap of paper, his emotions pouring onto the page as he penned a farewell letter. Tears blurred his vision as he wrote of their shared dreams, the laughter that echoed through the dark, and the unbreakable bond they'd forged in adversity. He wanted to honor Tom, to ensure his spirit remained alive in the hearts of those who fought alongside him. As he finished, Eddie whispered a promise into the wind, his voice carrying gratitude and love for a friend lost to war. The air was thick with an unshakable stillness as Eddie stood among his comrades, their faces painted with sorrow. Today they gathered to honor the fallen, the weight of grief palpable in the warm afternoon light. The clutches of memory tightened around him. Each name read a dagger in the heart, a stark reminder of the brothers he had fought alongside, sharing dreams and fears in the trenches. As the last name echoed through the quiet, a sense of resolute silence enveloped them. Tears blurred Eddie's vision as he recalled laughter amid chaos and camaraderie forged in adversity. Reciting a silent prayer, he vowed to carry their spirits forward, a torch lit against the darkness of war. In that moment, a spark ignited within him, a fierce determination to honor their memory by continuing the fight, ensuring that every fallen soldier would never fade into obscurity, but live on in the stories of those who remained. Eddie sat in the quiet remnants of a battlefield, the echoes of gunfire now replaced by an all-encompassing stillness. The air felt heavy with the memories of comrades lost, their laughter still lingering like a haunting melody in his mind. As he closed his eyes, he could almost hear their voices, jokes shared during the darkest hours, dreams of home carried on whispered promises. It was a surreal sense of connection that transcended the violence surrounding him. Each fallen soldier had a story, a life touched by love and loss, and he felt a profound duty to honor them. In this moment of solitude, he vowed to remember them not just as casualties of war, but as friends whose legacies would forever shape his existence. With renewed determination, Eddie opened his eyes, the weight of grief now mingled with a fiery resolve to keep their memories alive, to let their whispers guide him through the shadows. A sudden lull in the chaos of battle caught Eddie off guard, the thick smoke hanging in the air casting an eerie stillness. It was amidst this unsettling quiet that he stumbled upon an opposing soldier, a young man whose face mirrored his own exhaustion and fear. Their eyes met, each searching for signs of animosity or humanity. In that fleeting moment, amidst the distant sounds of gunfire, they shared a silent understanding, both prisoners of a war that had stripped them of their youth. Words faltered, yet a fragile connection formed. They were merely two young men caught in the web of conflict, bound by the same longing for peace. As they exchanged weary nods, Eddie felt his old perceptions of the enemy shift like the wind, revealing the shared sorrows of their lives. This encounter lingered in his mind long after they parted, a testament to the flickering humanity that persisted. Even in darkness, the echoes of gunfire still reverberated in Eddie's mind as he sat alone in a quiet corner of the trench, the chaos of battle fading into an unsettling silence. He closed his eyes, replaying the decisions made in the heat of combat. Each triumph felt tainted now, a weight pressing down on his conscience. He thought of comrades lost, imagining their faces in the shadows, reminding him of the split-second choices he had faced, choices that had saved his life but cost others theirs. Doubts gnawed at him as he pondered the thin line between survival and morality. Were they truly fighting for freedom, or merely perpetuating a cycle of violence? As the wind whispered through the trench, he felt the burden of accountability settle heavily on his shoulders, a constant reminder that every soldier bore their own scars, woven into the very fabric of their being, influencing who they would be long after the guns fell silent. As the smoke of battle began to clear, Eddie felt a strange sense of change in the air. The tides of war, which had once seemed insurmountable, were slowly shifting. He listened intently to the distant rumble of artillery, each report echoing a bittersweet declaration of hope and weariness. Weariness cloaked the soldiers, every face etched with the weight of survival. Eddie recorded his thoughts in shaky script, emotions flooding his mind like the surge of battle. They had faced unimaginable horrors together, yet here they were, standing on the fragile edge of victory. The camaraderie forged in the heart of chaos offered a flicker of optimism amidst the exhaustion. He held on to the belief that perhaps this was the beginning of the end, a chance to reclaim their lives. Though the ache of loss still shadowed him, the whispers of hope urged him onward, reminding him that life could bloom even in the desolation of war. As the train rumbles along the familiar tracks, Eddie stares out the window, watching the world slip by in a blur of green fields and distant hills. The sights evoke memories of laughter, love, and the simple joys of home that now seem distant, almost foreign. His heart is heavy with the weight of the past, each soldier's face flashing before his eyes, friends lost and moments shared in the unforgiving crucible of war. A cold shiver runs down his spine as he reflects on the scars, both seen and unseen, etched onto his soul. Yet as the train approaches his hometown, a flicker of hope ignites within him. He clutches the diary tightly, a testament to his journey, filled with echoes of laughter, loss, and resilience. Stepping into the embrace of familiar arms and the fragrance of home, Eddie vows to honor the fallen by living boldly, embracing life with a newfound understanding of its fragile beauty.